Trance3.com, and in this video I'm going to continue walking through the sketch project called Mirrors. I'm going to walk through the various automation that I've put into some of the tracks in this project, as well as walking through the arrangement. First, let's just look at the different sections of the track. I'm going to get this out of the way. So for this, what I've done is I've created sort of what would be representative of an intro part, some part that would be part of the intro. I'm sure, this would be extended. You'd have a much more gradual build up into this main section of the track prior to the break. But if we look at this as sort of a sketch representing the core components of a track, we can see that we've got, let's just call this the intro section. This would be the break and the build. In fact, this part would be more of a transition into the break because I've got that pitch sweep down. So we're transitioning into the break. And then here's where Pluck starts to make its entrance. So let's listen to that real quick. I'm going to go ahead and just play each section of the track actually. So here's sort of the first part of an intro section. Alright, so a few things to point out here. One is at the end, I've dropped the kick out here in the last bar. In fact, I think, yeah, it's not playing at all for the last bar. So you hear that pause in the kick before that kick comes back in and we introduced some of the next parts of the section. Okay. The other thing that's going on in here is I'm introducing the basses. So I start with bass 1 and bass 2, so both of those guys start playing, and they play for the first 8 bars, and then bass 2 and bass 4 make their entrance, so then they play for 8 bars, and at the same time this pad comes in. Okay, now the pad is just looping on this first part of the progression, the chord progression, so it's just the F chord, okay, the F minor chord, and that's really about it. Now we do have drums being introduced, so I've got this first hat loop, hat 1, followed by hat 2, and then a couple crash hits at the beginning of every 4 bars. And then there's a reverse crash leading into the next section here at the end of this. Okay, so next, then it flows into this section of the track, which is more of a transition. So there's sort of two halves. The first half of this is the pitch sweep up. So it's building up and adding some tension, and then that's going to be released by this sweep down as we drop into the break. Okay? And let me enable these two ping pong and reverb effects. Okay, so some things to point out about this are the kick is going to stop here. Okay, so we get this one hit at the same time that we get that explosion. Okay, and then we have the pitch sweep down going on. We're still playing the pluck and the pad and that hat loop. Now, there's some automation on the hat. Okay, the hat, what's happening is, to make this transition better, I've automated the cutoff frequency on this auto filter. Alright, so over the course of this section of the track, that's going to get darker and darker. Okay, and that just helps to transition down into the break. The other thing is the descender volume, track volume is being automated. We come out of the break right here, so I'll go through that when we get to the next section. And let me check bass 3 automation. Yeah, that's starting here too. So let's just go ahead and start with the next section. So this is the break section. Expand, collapse these again. So this break right here, what this does is I begin to play a portion of, sort of half of the pluck, the main pluck line. And what I did is instead of playing the whole thing, I cut parts of it out. Alright, so let me show you what I did. So here I'm playing the first part, but I'm only playing one bar. I'm not playing the 2-bar pattern. Alright, so I'm playing the first 6 notes of the pluck pattern here. Let me solo that. And then for the next chord progression, I'm playing the first bar of that as well for the next part of the pluck. So that's this one. And then same thing for the third one, playing this first bar of the 2-bar sequence here. And then playing the first bar of the last 2-bar sequence. Okay? And what that does, it starts to introduce the pluck, but it leaves room for when the pluck melody plays continuously here. Alright? And it also leaves room to do a technique called call and response with pluck number 2, where basically pluck 1 plays first, and then pluck 2 responds by playing its part. Alright? They basically take turns. So pluck 1 calls and pluck 2 responds. So that's happening like this. If I enable all the effects. Okay, so you get the idea, all right, how I've got that set up. Now, in the first part, again, I'm just playing the first part of the pluck just to add some interest. So if I take that out and we play that first section again, just to go back, since we're on the pluck now, I want to just go back and point this out. When I first created this, I didn't have the pluck here, and then I thought, well, it might be nice to have some melodic sounds, some tonal sounds happening here that aren't bass. So if I just play it now without the pluck there, you'll hear it. Okay, but then what I said was, well, let me try putting the pluck in. Just going to undo here until the pluck comes back. And the part that I did was just this little part here. So rather than playing the alternating notes like we have, I just hit C. So we end up with this sound. And then it switches here to the D sharp. And they just take turns. It just alternates back and forth like that until we get to the break where I start to play the original pluck, start to build up into that original pluck sequence. So that takes care of really break, some special things going on there, the call and response pattern I've laid out with the pluck. Also note that the pad doesn't make its full entrance. I don't start really playing that pad chord progression until we get through this section. So let me just play that. So what's going on here is I'm continuing to hold the F note in the bass, all right? The pluck is going to be playing its normal progression sequence as if the chord progression was changing, right? But for the pad, what I'm doing is holding that F. I'm still playing the F each time here. It's F, 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 all right? But the pluck is going on as if the chord progression was changing. That adds a little bit of tension, and it doesn't actually give away the chord progression yet. It maintains some interest. The other thing I did is I reversed the explosion here. Okay, so this is the explosion part with the reversal here. Okay, so you get the idea. And then that goes into the next section where we play the full chord progression. The bass is playing it along with the progression. The pad begins to play the progression. And the pluck continues to play. And then there's a reverse crash here, a crash here, and then a reverse crash here. So let's listen to that. Alright, I just noticed something. I thought it sounded a little off, but I wasn't sure when I first heard it. But now I realized that when I went through and walked through the track for Pluck 2, I did not re-enable the EQ. Okay, I stopped here at the auto filter. So what I want to do now is just fix that. So I'll demonstrate Pluck 2 with and without the EQ. So let's just finish that. So that's with the EQ. Here's without it. So it brings up the high end and some of the upper mid range. And the other thing happening is we are modulating or automating the cutoff frequency to go from low value to a high value. So this is going to get brighter over time. So you can see how more and more high frequencies are coming in. I'll demonstrate this EQ8 on and off with the cutoff frequency at its max value here. Okay, so now you hear Pluck 2. Let me go back and solo both of these together so you can hear them doing the call and response. Okay, so you get that idea. Now the break pretty much just leads into this chorus part, or some call the release. And this is pretty much the high top in energy, the maximum energy of the track. Everything's going, the pluck's going, both plucks are going full on. The pad is doing its thing with its cutoff frequency, maximum brightness. That's the other thing with the pad automation. I'm starting low, so the pad has sort of a darker, and then it gradually gets brighter and brighter and brighter over the course of the track. So you'll hear that, listen to that. Okay, so that takes care of the pad, and then just to play through this section here, that's pretty much everything. So then the track builds up to this release section. And then it repeats one more time here before it ends. Now, one more thing I want to point out, and this is something is on the bass 3, okay? When we drop into that break, I'm automating the ratio, the compressor ratio, because if you remember, that compressor set up for side chaining. So back here, this bass sounds like this. Let me just demonstrate this. Now, what I wanted to do was de-emphasize that pulse effect, that sidechain effect when I hit that break. I wanted the bass to have more of just a more sustained character, but I wanted it to have a little bit of pulse, so I left the sidechain on, but just lowered the ratio so that it's not as exaggerated. So when you listen to it, I'll just go from this part from here to here, and just listen for that change in that bass. So let me enable all the effects. Okay, so that's it for this sketch. I'm going to go ahead and just play through it one more time for those of you that want to listen to the whole piece continuously. that's it for this sketch project. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys have learned a lot, and I'll see you in the next video.